Welcome to today's lesson. We are going to look at this topic, that is European invasion of Africa and the process of colonization. So the main reasons for the coming of the Europeans in Africa were the following. We have exploration was one of the reasons as to why these Europeans were coming to Africa. So they just wanted to explore Africa or maybe African countries. So exploration was one of the first reasons. So they wanted to gain the geographical knowledge about the continent. Another reason was trade. So they were interested in commerce from which they could derive revenue. So they also came for the purpose of religion. Yeah, so they wanted to spread Christianity to non-Christian inhabitants in Africa. Remember, they were against the Islamic religion. Military strength was also another reason for the coming of the Europeans in Africa. So they had made major advances when it comes to warfare, which now gave them advantage over the people that they came in contact with now in Africa. Another reason for the coming of the Europeans in Africa was spirit of adventure. So they just came for the sheer of joy of being the first to find new lands in Africa. So you need to know that the European countries that were involved in the scramble for and partition of Africa, that is before 19th century, we had the Portugal, we had Spain, we had Italy, there was France, there was Germany, among other European nations like Britain and others. So I want us now to look at the scramble. Yeah, we have seen the reasons as to why they came to Africa. So by the time they reached Africa, they started now scrambling amongst themselves so that they can get a share of the African continent, or maybe some of the reasons that we have mentioned up there. So I want us now to go to the scramble for and partition of Africa. Scramble for and partition of Africa. So scramble here means a condition in which people struggle to obtain or maybe get a share of something. So when we talk about a scramble for Africa, this refers to the constant struggle amongst the European powers that we have mentioned, like Germany, Britain, Italy, and Spain. So that struggle among those European powers to own or get a share of African territories is the one we are referring to as a scramble for Africa. Then we have partition of Africa. So partition here means sharing or maybe dividing up of African regions amongst the European powers. So what happened here is that at first, by the time these European powers were now coming to Africa, there was no formula of sharing or exploring African continent. So they started competing amongst themselves so that they can get a share of African territories. But with the time, by the time they noticed that they were just fighting amongst themselves, there was a conference that was held in Berlin, and the resolution of that conference was that Africa has to be divided amongst the European powers amicably without having to struggle or compete in front of the African themselves. And that is why they came up with a partition of Africa. So now sharing Africa, yeah, without that struggle, without competition among the European powers. So what were the methods that were used by the European powers now to acquire the colonies in Africa? Remember, the methods used to acquire colonies in Africa was mostly determined by the way the local Africans responded to the European contact. So in most cases, a combination of the methods were used in acquiring African colonies. So the following are some of the methods that the Europeans used in acquiring colonies in Africa. Number one was diplomacy. So the methods used So they used diplomacy as one of the methods. So they used diplomatic tactics, for example, by establishing diplomatic relationships with African leaders and eventually occupying their land. Signing of treaties was also another method used in occupying different parts of Africa, where they signed different agreements with African leaders. Another method was luring of chiefs. Yeah, so some European powers occupied different parts of Africa by using their leaders now to lure their chiefs through presents like cloth and also other weapons. The second last is a divide and rule tactic. So they instigated war between different African societies by playing one society against the other. Then eventually they were weak, then the European powers could come and take over the land. And finally we had a military conquest or force. So in case the Africans resisted, the European powers also used force to occupy such territories. So those were just some of the methods. I want you to go and read more on the same so that we can meet in the next lesson. Thank you.